Your parents?
Jai Hind, everyone. I am truly honored and blessed today to have one of the most illustrious generals of the Indian Army, one of the very, very popular Chief of the Army Staff, former Chief of the Army Staff, General VP Malik, who needs no introduction at all. You all know him. You all have admired him. You all respect him. You all adore him completely. Who come from a very hardcore Fauji family as well. His wife, Mrs. Ranjana Malik, I had the honor of being in a similar conversation with her. She was a doctor in the Army Medical Corps. She was a captain. And his son is also a general officer posted in the north. And of course, he was at the helm of affairs during the Kargil War. You all know in 1999, the Kargil War took place. And that time, General VP Malik had a major role in getting India a victory from Pakistan side. He was also the chief of the Defense Staff Committee. He has held numerous appointments thereafter in the corporate sector. A man who doesn't retire at all, and in fact, fighting fit completely. I just met him a few days back at a conclave, and it was really overwhelming meeting a former chief. And let me all go ahead further and be in conversation with General VP Malik. Sir, Jai Hind, sir, and thank you very much for taking your time, sir.
Jai Hind, Major Ali. It's a pleasure to be with you. And thank you for your very long introduction. As I said, it's always a pleasure to be with any army officer, particularly when I find that they are second or third generation, second generation that you are. And yes, it's a pleasure, and I'm ready for all the shooting that you want to do at me.
Thank you, sir. Sir, actually, to be very, very honest, I would not like to. I dare not do any shooting at our former chief, and so there's something I'm very intrigued to know, sir. About I had, of course, when I was in school, I was just finishing my 12th at that time, and you were the chief, and we used to read about you, and we used to watch you, and I was like really overwhelmed, and you had a very, very crucial role to play in. Me joining the army, which you may not be aware. So many times we end up inspiring people. We are not very conscious of it. So I would like to know of our former chief as a child. What did you want to become? Did you always have this ambition of joining the army, or it was something that led you to get motivated to join the army, sir?
Ali, when I was in school, in fact, my parents wanted me to become an engineer, and they had put me in a engineering school. Delhi Polytechnic had a school called the Technical Higher Secondary School, and I had joined that with a view to becoming an engineer later on. But I was more impressed by the people in uniform, and I'm talking of those days when every person in a uniform was a hero, and they were better heroes than the filmy heroes, let me tell you that. Also, there was I was very keen on adventure, and you realize that the armed forces give you a lot of opportunity to go on adventure, their posting as well as their movements and the opportunity that they give you. Uh, we had a good social status, better than what it is today. I'm talking of the armed forces. So these are the kind of things which attracted me. And before I finished my higher secondary, those days we used to have higher secondary. Before I could finish that, I was in 10th class, and I decided to um, appear for the NDA examination. I was just about 15. And another thing I must also tell you that in my family, we had a few members who were in the armed forces, in the Army, Navy, and Air Force. So that was also an attraction. That is how I joined the Army. I appeared for the NDA examination before I finished my 10th class. In fact, my 10th class results came later. And since I got selected, I joined NDA in July 1955.
Sir, and tell me a bit about your academy days. Any particular memory? Though they would be, I'm sure there would be a lot of memories And any particular memory you would like to recall in particular? And also, were you the youngest in your course or one of the youngest perhaps?
Yes, I was one of the youngest, I would say. And I wasn't physically very fit, frankly, when I joined. My height was just about 5'2.5" or 5'3", and weight must have been just about 90 pounds, a little more than that. And that was a bit of a handicap when you were competing with other boys are who have come who are little older or who have come from public schools. I wasn't from the public school. Mine was a government school, and so initially one faced some of these problems because of I would say, uh, poorer physique compared to others. But then NDA is a place which gives you an opportunity to grow physically, mentally, in every respect. And that is how I grew up, and grew up from a young boy to a young man. And I, in my final terms in NDA, I was cadet sergeant major. So it was quite a progress, I would say. But as I said initially, there were the other thing I must also tell you that I wasn't very good in studies, and at one stage, in fact, I almost managed to get over my relegation because I had failed in one subject, and then finally I took non-technical subjects, and in which I did well. So I passed out well from the NDA, and subsequently from IMA also.
Sir, that is so inspirational. I mean, you have mentioned about so candidly that you were not very good at physicals, you were not good at studies, you mentioned. But here we have General VP Malik, a legend, someone who reckons with, someone everyone looks up to, in fact. And it's an inspiration for the youth of a country. If they feel they are not good at certain things, nothing can stop them back. They can be totally unstoppable provided they work hard. So, was CCLA your first choice of arm when you were opting out, when you were passing out from IMA and you were giving your choice of arms? What did you want to opt for, sir, actually?
No, Sikhelai was not my first choice. Of course, I wanted to join infantry, no doubt about that. But I had opted for Gurkhas and Rajputs, and Sikhelai was given to me. And those days, Sikhelai was not a very popular regiment. And so I was a little disappointed. But then subsequently, these are the kind of challenges which also become an opportunity for you. And the regiment in which I grew up, it was a great opportunity for me, along with the challenge. And today, as you know very well that regiment, our Sikhalai regiment, is one of the finest, considered to be one of the finest. And today there's a hard competition to get into this regiment. So over the years, I have seen a big change come about in our own regiment and in its popularity. And as I said right from the beginning, that it was a challenge as well as a big opportunity. And if I became chief, a lot of credit must go to my regiment.
Absolutely, sir. So, three chiefs from the Sikla regiment, sir. In fact, you were the first one, and General Bikram Singh, who was my GOC incidentally when we were in Tendiv in Aknur. And of course, and General Narwane, I mean, who I had the honor of being in a similar conversation with a few days back. Sir, it is, I would say, it is people want to join the Sikla now because they say General VP Malik's regiment. So, I have seen in fact, my own course a lot of people want to join the Sea Club because of you, sir. In fact, so tell us about, so you have, as a young officer, you had a very fine tenure, sir. But tell us about your command. You've had the honor of commanding in Nagaland and Jammu Kashmir, sir. Tell us, as a commanding officer, because one general once told me that the command of a commanding officer is apparently much better than any command one can get. So, would you agree with that statement, sir, or would you say how was it commanding the Indian Army and commanding your battalion, sir?
I would totally agree with people who think that, or who consider that command of a battalion is probably the best that no doubt about it. But these are different levels. When you are commanding a battalion at a tactical level, and then you are commanding the army at a strategic level. So, as far as commanding a battalion is concerned, that used to be our dream those days. That if you can command a battalion, you become a lieutenant colonel, you can command a battalion. You have about 750 or 800 people under you. And that is where you learn leadership per se. You know, the best of leadership comes when you are commanding a unit, a battalion or a regiment equivalent. And then, of course, you keep getting the opportunity to command a brigade, a division, a corps, and you finally end up commanding the army. And there is a difference in the, I would say, in the sense of responsibility, um, because as a unit commander, you are part of a bigger picture, a brigade, a division, etc. But when you are commanding the army, you are responsible for the entire Indian army, and along with that responsibility, there's a the accountability also increases. So, but you know, Indian Army is probably the best institution in the whole of our country, which starts training you in leadership right from the time you join the academies. You have also gone through the academies and you know that you learned leadership. So it's not only that up to major, you continue to learn leadership qualities and leadership traits and leadership responsibilities, accountability, all the way as you keep rising in your rank. And I was fortunate to have gone through all that. And I ended up at a rank when the buck stopped at my table when it came to any crisis situation in which the army had a role to play.
So, sir, you took over the chief in 1997. In fact, I was in school that time, and we were finishing our 12th around the same time a year after that. So, and 2 years later, the Kargil War broke out. In fact, in 1999, and so you were the helm of affairs. So, could you tell us a bit about your experience during the Kargil War when it all broke out and the information that we had initially received from our intelligence about the presence of a few people from the Pakistani side who had occupied a post? Could you tell us how it all started and the role that we played over there, sir?
Well, it was a situation when, you know, we were looking forward to some peace with Pakistan. And if you recall, we had our Prime Minister and Prime Minister of Pakistan had signed a Lahore Declaration in which they had said that we will resolve all our disputes on the table and not get into a war situation. The other part at that time, I think the other circumstances that we need to remember is that we had carried out nuclear weapon tests, both India first and then Pakistan in 1998. And we had both the countries had become rogue nations as far as the international community is concerned, and they had placed a large number of sanctions on us, particularly on India. We could not buy any weapons. We could not, in fact, uh, there was a complete breakdown of defense relationship, particularly with the Western countries. So those were the circumstances in which the Pakistani army took the initiative, and they they crossed the line of control in Kargil and Siachen sector. Overall frontage was about 160 kilometers. Now, they uh, thought that by declaring that the jihadis have crossed the line of control, they will get away with the responsibility. But and that is what was being told to us by our intelligence agencies as well as our troops on the ground, because they saw initially people in salwar kameez. Even the first intelligence report that came from the locals in that area in the first week of May, they also mentioned that they have seen some strangers in black salwar and kameez. So that was a ruse that the Pakistan army tried to play initially. And unfortunately, that was being supported by our intelligence agencies and for some time, even by our troops on the ground. Um at that time, I had gone on a foreign visit, official foreign visit, when initially we started getting these reports of people have entered our side of the line of control. And I could not really believe it, that why would anybody do? Because all the intelligence reports were that Pakistan is not likely, it doesn't have the capacity to fight a war with India. Anyway, when I came back, which was about 20th of May, and then I went to the forward areas and I got my briefing from the corps and command and all these people. And then one realized that firstly, I felt that these are not jihadis because they are functioning in a manner that any army soldiers would do. And therefore, I was quite certain in my mind that the Pakistan army has a very major role to play if it is not completely their own initiative. Subsequently, we found that there were no jihadis in that. I mean, that I can say it again and again, that there were no jihadis. They were all Pakistan Army, and it was their initiative. Now, of course, so much of material is available, both from our side as well as from Pakistan Army side also. So those were difficult days. We had the challenges of high altitude, Ladakh and Siachen area. We had the challenges of having lesser weapons, much less than what we were authorized. We had not been able to get enough money, and because of the sanctions and all, so we were short. We were short of ammunition and weapons also. Uh, then the sanctions would not permit us to buy anything from abroad. It took us some time to realize that this is a major effort being made by the major initiative taken by the Pakistan Army. And once we realized that, then we decided, all three chiefs, Army, Navy, and Air Force, that we need to work together. We need to have a military strategy in place which involves all three services. And after I gave my first briefing to the Cabinet Committee of Security, I told them about the situation. I told them that we need to work together. We need to have a military strategy which involves all the three services. And I sought permission for the other two services to participate, which they gave. But then they put us another obstacle on us. They said that you will not cross the line of control. So that became a term of reference for us in carrying out our military strategy and operational aspects. But then, I've given you all that narration in which I had a role to play. But subsequently, as I always believe, that planning is important, but the implementation is the one which gets you the results. Implementation is much more important. And that was done by our troops on the ground, whether they were Army or Air Force or even Navy, whatever role that they had played in that. And particularly, I would talk about the Army because I was Army chief at that time. What the boys did, all the battalions, all the regiments, Army, Navy, Army, within the Army, the infantry and artillery in particular, both, they, and the junior leadership. I think a lot of credit goes to our junior leadership. So, if, as you said initially, we won that Kargil war, we were able to achieve the political aim given to us, and the Pakistan army and the Pakistan politicians decided that they needed to withdraw and they needed to get away from that. So, the credit first must go to our junior leadership, our troops on the ground, and then maybe all the other planners and those who are involved in strategic planning or operational planning are in the logistics and everywhere else.
Yes, sir. So, along with the chief, concurrently, you were also the chief of the Defense Staff Committee. So, could you tell us a bit about the role of the chief of the Defense Staff Committee and how much influence would the chief of the Defense Staff Committee have over the Air Force and Navy, in fact, for that matter?
Ali, those days we did not have Chief of Defense Staff Committee. It was called Chiefs of Staff Committee.
Chief of
Okay,
Staff.
and all three chiefs were members of that. And the chief who had had a longer tenure as compared to the others, he was appointed. He became the chairman, chief of staff committee. Now we used to work together, and but each person was responsible for his own service. And generally, we found that while on many issues we were together and we could be able, but then, when it came to the question of getting the budgets, then we were in competition with each other, Army, Navy, and Air Force. And unfortunately, Army, Navy, and Air Force, in those days also, to some extent, even now, I would say, they had grown up in silos, and the jointmanship that we are now wanting to improve, and we are working on that, that was much less, and therefore even strategizing together was much less. But then whenever there was a crisis situation, I must say, whether it was 71 war or any time afterwards, any crisis situation, people did, the chiefs would work together as much as they could. And that's what happened in 99, when I gave my briefing to the other members of the Chiefs of Staff Committee, my colleagues of the Army, sorry, Navy and Air Force. So they all agreed with my assessment. And I told them, I said, we have to work together. Initially, some hesitation was there. They had their own reasons for it, particularly the Air Force. But subsequently, after this briefing that I gave them, we were all together. And that is how we went together to the CCS also. And the CCS said, yes, the Air Force and the Navy can play their role. And we worked together after that. Then thereafter, there was no problem at all.
Right, sir. So we also hear of a lot of stories are there on the internet about the Kargil war. Like, for example, like we had Brigadier Bajwa there who was who wrote a citation for a Pakistani officer, and he felt the Pakistani officer fought bravely. So he said he wrote a citation and kept it in his pocket. And when the body went to Pakistan, he was awarded with Nishan-e-Haider, that equivalent to Paramveer Chakra. So could you throw some light on that, sir?
Yeah, this incident, Ali, took place when Bajwa was commanding 192 Brigade, and his brigade had been tasked to capture Tiger Hill. Now, as you would know, Tiger Hill was one of the very important objectives that we had. It's a very dominating height as you go on the highway from Srinagar to Leh. And his battalion, 8 Sikh and 18 Grenadiers, they were tasked to capture that. So that fighting took place for a couple of days. And in that fighting, the Pakistani officer, I think his name was Colonel Khan. He was a captain at that time, and he was from Special Forces, if I recall. So he counterattacked our troops when we had captured Tiger Hill. And the fighting was not fully over yet, but he counterattacked. And he led the counterattack. And obviously, he fought very bravely because our troops acknowledged his bravery with whom they had been fighting. And you are right that Bajwa wrote a citation, a kind of citation, and put it in his pocket when Pakistan Army asked for his dead body. He died in that counterattack. And, Pakistan left a very large number of dead bodies in our territory. And even when we asked them that, look, you can take them away, but they did not do so. They only took a few bodies after speaking to us when the war was over or about to be over. And this was one body which they asked for, and we handed over with full military honors. And then subsequently, we found that Pakistan Army had awarded him the highest gallantry award from their side. So that is the story about Bajwa having written some kind of a citation and put it along with the body of um, Colonel Sher, something like that.
Sir, sir. speaks large volumes of our magnanimity, sir. How Indian soldiers, uh, how we treat the enemy, how we even in those times. It really, that's a very very moving story, sir. Very very touching
Ali,
story.
it is not magnanimity, it is ethics, you know, and that is what we have always believed in, any generation before, and we have been following that. So these are the ethics, I would say, and we have followed those. And as I said, that there were a large number of dead bodies. We offered them that, look, you take them back, and because they did not take them back, I must give full credit to our battalions because they buried all the bodies um, with full military honors, which meant if because they were Muslim boys, so we had the Maulvis doing the saying the prayers, and then gave them a proper burial. There's another incident that I must tell you.
Yes,
There
please.
was one young captain. In fact, his surname was also Malik. I must tell you. He was holding a post in southern glacier, and our boys, Rajput battalion, they had captured that, and in that, those people had suffered 8, 9 casualties, including one young captain, a lieutenant or a captain, um, on that post. And then, having captured it, and because the Pakistanis were not claiming it, so our boys had buried all those soldiers. Many months later, not many months, but months later or 2 months later, I got a message through our defense attache in London saying that that boy's grandfather has approached him and said that can we hand over the body of that dead boy, to his parents. Now, the message was sent for me through our defense attache. So when I asked the battalion or units and all, I said, look, can you locate where you have buried him? And can you? So initially the answer was we'll try, but then they were able to locate that. And while the war was on, we handed over the body of not only this boy, but also all his colleagues who were on that post, who were killed, with proper military honors back to Pakistan. So that, as I said, are the ethics of the Indian Army, which we must continue to follow.
Sir, so you commanded a battalion in Nagaland. In fact, I had the honor of having two tenures in Nagaland. In fact, so there was a there's a family in in Kohima. In fact, of Captain Kangarooz's family, Mahavir Chakra, posthumous. So his family, his father had very very high regard for you. Each time we would meet, we would invite them to officers' mess for functions and such things. They would always speak about you, sir, every time. And Captain Kangaroo, of course, he was awarded the Mahavir Chakra posthumous, and so so many such stories. In fact, the story you told us just now, that there's something which people were not aware of. They have not seen it on the internet anyhow. So you've had the experience of action of wars earlier. So I would like to know. I'm very curious to know where were you posted in 1962, in 1965, and 1971, sir.
Okay, 1962, I was with my battalion as a young officer in Ladakh when the war broke out. And with my battalion, we had gone, we were transported by air, we went and we were flown to Leh and then went to Dungti and Chumatang and all these places when the war was going on. But we were not in Trishul area where actual firing, etc., was taking place. So 1962, I spent 62 to 64 in Ladakh, having been inducted there with my battalion sometimes in October 1962. 65, I was instructor in infantry school. In fact, I just missed that war because just before the war broke out, I had been posted to infantry school from my battalion. In 71, I was again part of my battalion, and we moved from Mizoram to Bangladesh. But before we could get involved there, our unit was asked to move to northern border because the Chinese had been creating some problem in Kameng sector. So I spent my 71 uh, war period, moving first from Mizoram to Bangladesh border, and then from there to Kaming sector in Bumla area, where the Chinese were trying to threaten us through their patrolling and other activities. I spent it there. But coming back to my own war experience or conflicts experience, I commanded my battalion partly in Walong sector and then in Nagaland. 1 year in in Walong sector and 2 years in Nagaland. And that was between 74 to 77. I commanded my brigade in Jammu. That was a period of Blue Star and other activities that we had. I commanded my division again in Nagaland, 8 Mountain Div. And then I took that division from Nagaland, Manipur, from that area to Kashmir in 1990 because we were expecting a war at that time with Pakistan. And I left the division after finishing my command in Kashmir Valley. And with 8 Mountain Div, I have a much greater association, having commanded the battalion, having been their deputy GOC and then as a GOC. And subsequently, as you know, during the Kargil war, I moved 8 Mountain Div from Kashmir Valley to Ladakh, to Kargil, where it is today.
Sir, sir, in Nagaland, where were you exactly stationed, sir?
Nagaland, initially I was located in Makokchung, and
Oh, the
then
out, sir, the out tribe,
oh,
Alichan and sir,
that is right.
sir.
Coming to Kangaroo's story, as you know, Kangaroo's was one of our bravest person who got his Mahavir Chakra and fully deserving. In fact, a few months ago, I had gone to Kohima myself, again with my wife, and we met the family. And it was nice to meet the family. And one always gives respect and must give respect to the martyrs' family. And so it was very nice to meet them. And he was, I think he's the first MBC from Nagaland. Let me also tell you the story that when his dead body was moved by road from Dimapur to Kohima, both sides of the road were full of Nagas and their families and cheering, and sort of saluting the dead body when it was moved. And it was very touching, the story that I got from there. And even today, I'm so happy that the Nagas, they give full respect to their martyrs, and particularly these people who have been, who got that national award, the bravery award and all. So I have a lot of respect for Kangarooze family, but similarly, I have visited every officer's house, who lost. There were about 25 officers we lost during Kargil war. But has not been able to meet the Jawan's families because they were larger number. But I have made effort and I have been to the officers' families, and in with most of them, I'm still in touch, both me and my wife. And I
Sir,
think again, this is the kind of bonding that we have in the army, you know, and it's a great bonding. Um,
yes, sir.
that
Sir.
is what it is. One of the value system that we have in the armed forces.
So a couple of years later, sir, in 2002, when I joined the Officers Training Academy to train, and in fact, I was highly inspired when the Kargil War took place and by your leadership that time. So we had instructors in academy, sir, like we had Captain Nimbalkar, who was Veer Chakra from Grenadiers, from 18 Grenadiers. We had now Subedar Major at NDA. That time, sir, he was Havaldar. That time, Sanjay Singh was there. So they would all talk about Kargil. They would each time that thing used to be, they would talk about Kargil. Your name had to come, so all the time, each and every time, sir. So in fact, Vishal Batra is a very dear friend of mine, Captain Vikram Batra's brother, his twin brother, and so sir, tell us about the time that when I know this incident where Hema Aziz, the mother of Captain Hanifuddin, when his body couldn't be located in the snow, and that time you had given a call to Hemasi. That's what we know from the internet. Actually, we don't know straight from the horse's mouth. We don't know it from either from Hemasi's ma'am or from you. Either way. So what exactly had happened? And she had mentioned that please do not bother. We have already lost one son, so many sons of soil. I don't want to endanger the lives of other sons to rescue. What was that story about, sir?
See, we lost Hanif in those days. It was called SSN sector of Siachen. Today we call it Hanifuddin sector in his name. He had led a patrol into the enemy territory, and unfortunately, he got killed. He got shot. It was a very difficult terrain on which they were moving, and he got shot, and his body fell down in a crevice, and it couldn't be recovered for quite some time. And that was a period when we visited, my wife and I, we visited Hanif's mother. His father, he had lost his father earlier. And we met his brother and his mother. And she asked me at that time, can we get his body back? Because she would like to see proper burial. And I knew the difficulty that we had. So I told her, I said, look, we'll try our best. I couldn't say, yes, we will, but I said, we will try our best. And then I tried to explain to her that, look, this is what has happened. And anybody who goes into that crevice area, then their own life is at danger because there's a shooting take place. That is the time when she said, okay, look, I understand. And therefore, I don't want anybody else to be killed in trying to recover my son's body. I thought that was a great gesture, really, from a mother who had just lost her son. But subsequently, credit goes to his battalion. I think it was Rajrif Battalion, and they recovered the body, and we were able to hand it over ceremoniously to the mother. And we are in touch with her. Off and on, we keep meeting her. And very brave mother, I must say, and mother of a very brave son also. So, well, that's the, as I said, ethos of the army, how we bond with each other, and then what we do. Great son of, great soldier son of our country.
So I would like to know what how's life after retirement as a chief been post 2000 for you, sir? After the new millennium, in fact, you have been extremely busy. You have been a top man in the corporate as well. How's life been post retirement from the army, sir?
Look, I have tried to keep myself busy. One can't really sit at home after retirement. I'm not one of those. I believe that one should be physically and mentally busy. So I got a large number of opportunities. Uh, my first opportunity came when I went to USA soon after my retirement, and I found that a large number of universities wanting me to come and speak to them. So those lectures on Kargil war, on Indo-Pakistan relations, and other issues. Then I got an opportunity to be an independent director to some well-known multinational companies. And till today, I am as an independent director with some of these such companies. Then when I got the opportunity to raise nas- um security wing of the Observer Research Foundation. We called it Institute of Security Studies. And Observer Research Foundation, you would know probably that it's doing very well, one of our major think tanks in Delhi. I spent about 9 years with them, 8, 9 years with them. I also got an opportunity to become a member of the National Security Advisory Board for 2 terms. Then, of course, there have been a large number of lectures in think tanks, in universities, in schools, colleges, not only about the security affairs or strategic affairs, but also on leadership and management. Having spent a lot of time with these multinational companies, I can now give a talk both on how leadership is developed in the armed forces, and how the corporate sector is looking at it and what they are doing about it. The pros and cons from both sides. One can always learn from each other. So all these issues, I have also written two books, as you probably know.
Yes.
One on Kargil war, and the other one is India's military conflicts and diplomacy, an inside view of inside view of decision making. Primarily, it is on decision making aspects. So there's a lot of experience one has gained, and one can share that. And when you are sharing, you also learn a lot more. And so I'm quite happy, quite satisfied that I can continue to share my experience with people and also keep learning from them, uh, particularly from the younger generation, because the younger generation today is very aware and very definite in their mind compared to the earlier era of what they want to do, and they have those so many opportunities in front of them. So it's been a very satisfying period after my retirement also.
Sir, and one last question before I let you go, sir. Sir, when I met you just about a week back recently at this conclave, you were there with a lot of other retired generals who, with all respect and all admiration for them, sir, who were much junior to you by perhaps decades, but you looked fittest amongst them all, sir. We have a group photograph as well where you were looking the fittest over there again. So, what is the secret of your fitness, sir?
No, no,
Just
I,
one.
I don't know whether I was the fittest, but well, you've been in the army yourself, and your father has been he has such a long tenure and a very distinguished tenure. We are careful about our health, and all of us, and we do make sure that we remain fit. We have to go through medical examinations every year. So we are conscious of this. And I think the first thing is to be conscious of your health and try and remain fit, whether it is a question of doing some exercises, or it's a question of doing yoga, or it's a question of what you are eating and when you are eating and how you are eating, all those aspects. And it's nice to see that all our people from the armed forces today have become more conscious, not only the men, but also the women. And not only those who are wearing uniform, I'm talking of women, but even our families also, the children also. So it's a culture which has now come about, and I'm very happy to see that. Um, so I can't be giving wrong examples, can I?
Of course, sir. Sir, very well answered by you, sir. Very, very true, sir. Sir, you have always been an epitome of an example for us to follow and to imbibe. Sir, thank you very much for your time, sir. You've been very, very gracious with your time, and sir, thank you very much, sir. Jai Hind,
Thank
sir.
you, Ali. Thank you, Ali. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being with you. And also, I must compliment you for very penetrating and very nice question that you have asked me throughout this. And wish you all the best. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind, sir. Thank you, sir.
Jai Hind.
He's ending the live broadcast, sir.